Does the coach, he says, but I don't know what they're doing.
11 participants. Yeah,
So here are the departments, here's the percentage.
there we go, there's Brine. Hi,
Hi,
Brian.
you can hear us, Brine? Yeah, good. All right, so, you ready?
Hey, Scott's here as well. I don't know if you can hear me.
Scott, you're on? Oh, wonderful. Well, so we're
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
just,
sorry. I'll end up coming in probably a half hour from now. I had to take my son to urgent care. He needed some stitches.
jeez.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Well, let's just start with the roll call. Brian,
Here.
Josette,
Yes.
I'm here. Audrey?
Yes.
Yeah, switched on me.
Oh, no, we're sitting there.
Steve Hendricks is not here. Jean?
Yes.
Leanne? Larry is not here. Adrian?
Here.
Doug?
Here.
Mark Sullivan?
Here.
Mark Trudeau is not. Lisa?
Yes, here.
Scott is on Zoom. And Kathleen?
Yes, I'm here.
I'm here.
Hey, excellent.
Everybody?
All right, excellent. So we have a quorum. We will get started. I will turn it over. You want to introduce yourself to?
Yes, my name is Ed Forsberg. I'm chairman of the Capital Budget Committee, and I'm here to present the articles for the 2022 fall town meeting. And we'll start right off with Article 6. The first request is from the engineering department. This is culvert permitting and construction. This culvert is at Washington Street at the School Meadowbrook, which is down at the, near the Department of Public Works. This is an old stone culvert. We know it was built prior to 1912. It's not in need of immediate repairs, and we were looking for, hoping for ARPA funds to grant this request. The request is actually for $1 million, and we took no action on that one as it was not recommended by the town administrator. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, did you want to ask questions as we go along?
I say, if anyone has any, I think it's probably, as you go through each one, if anyone has a question, just raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll just keep going right through. We'll go through each article and vote at the end of,
Right,
Article
so
6,
I'll
go through them all,
explain
get the
everything in
totals.
article, and then we'll take
The vote, yeah,
the
sorry.
at the end. Okay,
Should have
great.
clarified that in the beginning.
All right, the next request was also from engineering, and this is a downtown traffic study. This would be Phase 2. This would be follow-up of the design of Phase 1. It would also include the implementation of the design. It would be software, hardware, and the timing of the lights to see if we can make the traffic flow better through the center of town. I hope this word works. It seems like we've done a lot of studies on it, but something's got to work one of these times. The request is actually for $250,000. The town administrator recommended $250,000, and so did the Capital Budget Committee. Next would be in the
We
Parks
got one
Department.
question here.
Can we talk about this some more? What exactly is this doing? Like, as you just commented, it seems to me we've had a lot of designs done downtown. And so this, you said this is design and actually implementation. What exactly are they doing?
Right, I might ask engineering, the town engineer, Carl Baldoff, to explain a little bit more, but what we were told is that this is a further study for the current traffic issues and change the timing of the lights and whatever, but I'd like to, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, if engineer could talk to
No,
us.
just please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Carl Baldoff, Town Engineer with the Department of Public Works. The current study was actually fairly comprehensive. It looked at all kinds of things downtown, pedestrian signs, how traffic was short-circuiting, et cetera. The current request, and there are some recommendations in there, there are various things, there may be some traffic calming in neighborhoods. There's at intersections with sight distance problems, things that need more investigation. But the primary thing is that there's actually current signals, 3 of them are functioning as islands, and 2 of the 3 don't have detection equipment working. So in other words, they can't see when cars are queued up at on the various approaches. So instead they run on timer, and they're all running independently. So the very first part of this, and most important part, is to get the detection equipment fixed, get the signals coordinated with timing, and get the programming straightened out so that we may possibly be able to platoon traffic through and still not hold up side approaches and whatnot, approaches that are less busy and whatnot. It's complicated, we actually don't understand everything that's involved with it yet, but we're gonna utilize these funds to figure that out, get this implementation underway, and we shouldn't be digging up the center of town. This is mostly hardware, software. The detection equipment nowadays is cameras, it's not in the ground on the loop. So that's the primary effort with that. Depending on how that works out, we may actually go and implement some of the other measures on here too as well.
Mark, that,
So I guess they're gonna put in detection, this is for the two lights, the one right here and the one down where 27 is? Where's the third one?
Center of town and then 27 and then Common Street.
Okay,
Stone, Common, and East.
right, okay, so all three will basically talk with each other.
Yes.
Is it a permanent kind of fix? Like, what I'm wondering is, the traffic pattern will greatly change once Route 1A starts to get torn up, and is this adjust itself to that and then go back to when it's normal, or is it gonna pick what it sees now, it becomes a permanent fix, and then it's a completely different pattern once 1A is torn up?
So the analysis actually used 2019 numbers to take a look at this before COVID, because that changed everything. And there's some current observation and some adjustments, so I don't know that we're gonna have a special timing sequence in there right now during the Route 1A construction. But it's going to be sorted out so that these things operate in unison. And, you know, currently there are provisions for them to operate in different modes at different times of day. The fail-safe on all these signals is always timing. If the detection doesn't work, it goes to a timer. The problem with that is you could be sitting down there at 11 o'clock at night waiting 30 seconds and there's nobody on the road one way or the other. The other default is the main line, Main Street is gonna always be defaulted to open. So in the middle of the night, if there's nobody around, Main Street will be open as a rule. That's kind of a universal. And I'm not an expert on signal timing. And if you rip the scab off of this too deep, you're probably gonna stump me because like I say, we need to do some more work on this. But that's the general idea, is to get them all operating, get them all with detection, and hopefully get an improvement of flow through the center of town.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, did you have a question?
Yeah, it was more, sort of to make sure that Mark's question was fully answered. So this would not be a study, this would be the implementation of at least the traffic light part. And then you indicated there might be some more pieces.
It
that
is.
correct?
We're also gonna have a little more study in this, because some of the things that have been revealed need to have some more design work done on them. We're not entirely ready to go out to bid with all this stuff right now, and it hasn't been vetted out. The report is still gotta be seen by everybody and agreed upon and those kind of things.
But for $250K, we would be getting stoplights that have detection and are timed together.
Yeah, actually, yes.
Are we getting actual stoplights, or are we getting a report that tells us how to go get the stoplights?
No, you'll get stoplights in that deal. There'll be another report on how the operations go and whatnot, and that'll be used to determine what the exact specific repairs and timing should be. But you'll get fixed stoplights out of this.
Just, Route 1A through the center of town and south, is that does Walpole own that, or is that the state road still?
Walpole owns it, but we're under traffic control agreement with DOT because we have state highway to the north and the south. Eventually, as I think everybody knows, state highway to the north will be town road, but it's still state highway. So we're gonna have to coordinate with DOT on this as well. So we've gotta run that by them when we adjust any timing or do any work on those signals. Part of this is coordination with DOT, which requires experts. We can't do that.
So this is obviously the capital budget, but are there any software implications into the operating budget? Like, what platform does this sit on? Is there extra costs over and above once all this stuff gets implemented? And I don't know if it marries itself to existing.
So actually, in split function, the highway superintendent requested money at last town meeting, a couple of town meetings ago, and they, with the traffic vendor that maintains these signals, actually put all new boxes in these cabinets, so we've got up-to-date modern equipment there. We just need to take it a step further. They basically put that stuff in there and use the timing from the 2014-15 era, and then maybe something happened in between with the detection. They're sensitive to lightning, big time. So, and it's hard to know when they're not, when they're out. All right, we don't have an on-staff person to keep an eye on all these traffic controllers. We rely on the vendor. So anyway, there's a maintenance issue in there. But to answer your question directly, the highway super keeps a budget, superintendent keeps a budget, and they do the maintenance through that. And we generally have a single vendor that's in town that does that.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say in the capital budget request form for this, it says this will be the design project to implement results of the downtown traffic study. So it would actually be the implementation of it, so.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. All right, next would be the Parks Department. This is the fund for the synthetic turf replacement. We currently have 3 synthetic turf fields in town, and the expected lifespans of these turf fields are between 12 and 15 years. In 2000, was it 17, I think?
19.
Excuse me?
For the high school?
Yeah.
2019.
Excuse me, 2019, we replaced the one at the Turco field, and that was right around $450,000. We're anticipating a cost of about $600,000 when these come due to be replaced. So a number of years ago, we started a fund, so we wouldn't have to come up with all of the money when it was time to replace. The request was for $75,000, and that's what we tried to allot when we only had the one field. But now that we have the 3 fields, that was bumped up by the town administrator to $125,000. That's out of free cash, and that is what the capital budget committee recommended.
And this goes into the revolving?
No, it goes into the capital fund, which has a balance of $225,220.
Excellent. Any questions?
Okay. Next would be a tree planting program with the Parks Department. This would replace trees that were removed because of safety reasons or just because they were, dying. This would be a town-wide, and the replanted trees would actually be on private property instead of in the roadway between the sidewalk and the roads. The roots actually destroy the roadway and the sidewalk, so these would be planted on the private property. There would be permission, you would need to get permission from the property owners to plant these trees. And there's like 3 or 4 types of trees that the actual resident, the owner of the property would be able to choose. The trees average on price around $250 each. So we think with the $20,000, we could replace approximately 50 trees throughout the town. Like I said, the original request was for $50,000. Town administrator and the capital budget committee are recommending $20,000 for that.
Can I ask?
Yep.
So who is responsible for maintaining the trees? So they're on private property, so then if
The
like a
owners
limb
would be.
fall, the owner.
I can't quite
Yeah,
remember, but.
the town, through the first growth cycle, the first year, the town would be responsible for the tree.
Okay,
Beyond that first year, once it's established, then the owner would take responsibility.
and the owner would be informed of that?
Correct. It'll
As
be
part
a
of agreeing.
two-party agreement.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I think Justin said, what is it, alligator bags? I think it's alligator bags that they put on and would maintain that for a year,
Right.
so, and so that, we'd try to enhance the growth of the tree and then before it was turned over.
Okay.
Brian?
Thanks, Denny. Through you, can you tell me why the request was for 50 and what that entailed and why it's now recommended for 20?
The original request, you're correct, Brian, was for 50. This being a new program, we're kind of going to run it as a pilot through the first year. If it's successful, I think the town administrator would be amenable to providing more dollars as we move forward. But we just wanted to give it a try, and we think the $20,000 is sufficient for the first year.
Okay, great, thanks. I support this. I think this is wonderful. I think for the trees that have been removed, we should be replacing them, so thank you so much.
Do you already have an idea of the designated areas, or can you say that now?
We didn't actually discuss that.
We don't have any specific areas identified yet. Justin has a list. I don't think he's ready to release it yet, but he's still assessing it.
Thanks.
We'll probably have a master plan for that, too.
I'm
Sorry, these are replacing trees that were destroyed or removed
Either
during,
destroyed or they had to be taken down because they were dying or they were a safety hazard.
Storm damage, disease,
got it, okay,
threat.
thanks.
Excellent.
What's that?
Yep.
Next would be the track, the replacement of the track at Treco Field. Current track is about 12 years old. The life expectancy is about 10 to 15 years old. This would be to resurface the top layer of the track, like the cork or whatever it is. It's starting to deteriorate, and we want to get a jump on this to repair it, because once it deteriorates too much and water starts getting underneath, it's going to destroy the base, and then it'd be a much a higher expense to replace it.
So this 190 would actually replace
The complete track.
yeah, so not going into a fund for the future.
Right,
This is do
so,
it now.
I think, yeah, these tracks are good for 10 to 15 years, and I think the base is good for around 25 years, I think, was
Yeah,
it, something
it's
like
an
that?
asphalt base.
So the base, so it seems to me like the better care we take of the top layer, that the bottom layer, the base would last much longer, so. And this request was for $190,000. Both the town administrator and the capital budget committee recommend $190,000.
Great.
Next is passive area renovation. This is to upgrade various parks and traffic islands throughout town with plantings. And one of the examples we were given is like Cobb's Pond, the little parking area, to do some plantings and stuff, just to beautify the area. This request was for $30,000, and both the town administrator and capital budget committee is recommending the $30,000 for that.
Brine, question?
Yeah, thanks, Denny. This was on the Turco Field replacement.
Oh, sorry.
What is the timeline to do something like that, and time of year that something like this would take place?
Well, it would naturally be, try to be done in the off-season, and the Turco Field was just done a couple of years ago, so we're looking to get at least maybe close to 12 years out of that.
Yeah, are you talking about the track, Brian?
Yes, how long it would take to complete a project like this? Will it interfere with any of the activities?
The actual process would take less than a month, and what we'd do is coordinate with the high school athletics. Once they're done, then we'll be ready to go, and when that time frame allows, we'll do it. But it should be done in less than a month, typically 2 or 3
Excellent.
weeks.
Thank you.
Question about that.
Yeah.
For the passive area renovations, you had mentioned the Cobb's Pond, but there are other locations?
Yeah,
but
it's
do you-
traffic islands, and there was
Yeah, I
another
think it
pond.
was actually,
yeah.
Clark's Pond was another
Clark's,
one.
I'm sorry.
Clark's Pond
yeah.
and Springbrook over here, and other traffic islands and other passive areas.
Do you know how many, I'm thinking the $30,000, and I'm thinking the ponds, they're not that big, the traffic islands aren't that big. Is there, 10 locations? Do you have a sense of exactly
I guess it depends on
Or we can speak.
how extensive they groom and landscape an area. So I don't have an exact number of how many areas this will take care of.
Thank you.
Good. So, excuse me if I make some mistakes in the ponds and stuff, but we only had our votes in our meeting last night, and I was past midnight trying to put a lot of this together, so.
No problem.
So.
We appreciate your hard
I want
work.
any of the department heads to chime in when they think I made a mistake, so. Next would be the Trails Committee. This is for trails maintenance. it would actually add some benches, modify some bridges, a few of the bridges, like I know the one up in the town frost that goes to Jarvis Farm there. The water levels and the swamp and stuff change, and this would be almost like a floating entrance to the bridge, so you would be able to access it no matter how deep the water is there. It would also be for a study to extend the Metacomet Rail Trail. That's a rail trail that actually goes behind the senior center, and it goes all the way to the Norfolk line, to the Pondville Hospital area, and it goes behind the new recreation fields up there. And so this is a study, and I think the other towns are trying to all work together, so you could actually go right up to Rentham and beyond with this eventually. It was also, they would try to GPS the trails and install some signage and then just improve the trails themselves. This request was for $20,000, and Town Administrator and the Capital Budget Committee voted favorably, recommending the $20,000 for that.
For the rail trail, it's a feasibility study. You'll eventually have to come back, or the Trails Committee would come back for construction money to improve, remove trees and do that.
I would imagine that, I would anticipate that.
Just wanted to make sure this was just a study and no actual
Right.
physical.
I don't know if Gary's here, but that was just,
Gary
into it.
isn't here. So the whole request was for trails maintenance. This originated from a project that they were doing this past summer. It was a signed project that they identified, didn't have a funding source, so we ended up cobbling together a few department budgets to kind of help them towards the end of the year. So at the time, it was suggested to the Trails Committee, maybe you might want to consider putting together a budget request, so you've got, some funding available should there be projects you want to try and undertake, one of which is the trail. So it's possible that depending on the outcome of that study, that there'll be funding available within this appropriation, or, if they spend this out maybe in a few years, 2, 3 years, 5 years from now, there may be another request for trails maintenance that they can use for other projects that they undertake.
Thank you.
So, through you, is there now a Metacomet rail trail, or the study is to say we could create a Metacomet rail trail?
If I'm not mistaken, I think that's a study that the town of Norfolk is undertaking that stretches into Rentham. So I think there's a feasibility study underway in a rail right-of-way that's been identified. So
Okay.
there are various informal trails that exist, but nothing formal like a rail trail.
Nothing you can ride your bike on?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, but I actually live next to it and back up, so I hike there all the time on the old railroad line, so, and it, up through the old fields. So, be nice to get some professional help in maintaining it.
So this would actually be an extension of the trail that's behind the senior center that they built a few years back, and that would take it all the way to the Norfolk line, actually.
It's good. Use all the help I can get getting longer trails.
And then you can get to the senior center quickly, too,
The hair goes grayer.
to see me.
Excellent. Any other questions? Sorry.
For projects such as these where in the future improving trails and removing trees, it would be great to budget in the tree planting program into this, so 1 for 1. If you remove tree, you plant them somewhere, and then we can incorporate that moving forward.
You mean any trees that would be removed on the rail trail?
Right, budget and planting them elsewhere.
I would imagine there's too many trees in that area right now, is there? I don't know, I haven't been up there, but, it was where the old rail bed used to be, so, but, I mean, that,
But as we go forward. Yep. Good point.
okay, all set? All right, next would be the cemetery department. This request is for repair to various stone walls and the older headstones. It'll improve the safety and the aesthetics of the cemeteries townwide, mostly Maple Grove and Torrance Hill cemeteries. The request was for $20,000. Town Administrator and Capital Budget Committee recommended the $20,000 for that. Good. Okay, next would be building maintenance. This is a masonry project. This would remove the 4 chimneys at the Blackburn Hall, and it would just be above the roof only. This is in preparation for the roof replacement. The chimneys are in bad shape, and it would actually, we're told, it would cost more probably to repair the chimneys than to take them down. So this would be just to take the chimneys down below the roof line so we could have a nice roof. I mean, I think the chimneys may give the building the character, but I can understand that it wouldn't be worth it, because they're not in use now. Everything's direct vented, and they serve no purpose at all. That recommendation was for $125,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee are recommending.
So this is for the Blackburn Hall?
Yes. There's
This
four
is-
chimneys on there.
this
You
is
can
in
see two of them right-
addition-
You can see two of them right out the window there.
Right, and this is in addition to the 420. I see
Yeah,
also for the,
That's separate altogether, yes.
so I'm just curious, the Blackburn Hall, it's a very old and historic building. I mean, is it worth? I don't mean to talk blasphemy in the town of Walpole, but is it like, here it is, we're stuck with it, you're gonna pay what you're gonna pay to keep it going, is there?
The building is used quite a bit, but it's also in the deed, I think, too,
Yeah.
isn't it? When this was deeded to the town, but
Yeah,
Jim can
so,
speak.
just to follow up on it, so we commissioned last year a recreation study to review Jarvis Farm, pools, Blackburn, East Walpole Library, and one of the main items was address the pools. That's why you see 250 here a little bit further down to start to plan to what to do with that, but was also begin to address that building. It's, I think it was built in 1918, does that sound about right? 19, but, you know, it's 100 years old, and it needs to be addressed. I don't want to see it fall into somewhat of the disrepair that we're seeing with the old town hall. Long-term, I don't see that changing over from a recreation center. We're going to keep it as that. The select board is going to, of course, study Johnson, but I don't see the recreation moving in there anytime soon. And one of the top needs addressed there as part of that feasibility study was you need to begin to address that building. ADA access, the masonry going around there, you need to put the roof on, or leaks. So we're trying to, we don't want to see that building really fall apart. We're going to put some money into it. Did I miss anything? Oh, and all in, the feasibility study estimated, total cost was 1.3 million to address that. So we're not doing all of it, but we're going to try to begin to work on it.
Okay, thank you.
Also, that what came up, because I asked, this is not, Blackburn has not been declared a historic building, which allows you to be able to take the chimneys down, which is the answer to your question. Because I had asked that, because I know at the police department, the old police department, you're stuck with the exterior and such. So this gives a lot more flexibility to correct the inequities that are over there.
Thanks, that was the question I was going to ask. and
Okay.
Josette addressed it.
Excellent.
Okay, the next item requested by the building maintenance would be the oil tank removal. This would be to remove the unused oil tanks that are underground at the high school. There's actually one tank, and like I said, it's at the high school. It also includes removing any of the leftover oil, which is very little that's in there, and then disposing of it properly. That request was for $55,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee are recommending. The building is all, the high school is all gas now. There's no fuel oil up there, so. And eventually, it looks like they want to go electric, so we'll see what happens.
Excellent.
Good. Okay, next would be the Conservation Commission. This is for the conservation land on North Street, and this would be a land access. I don't know if you saw the map in there, but just past the intersection of Fisher Street and North Street, when you're going towards Westwood, it's I think after the second house on the right, there's some land that was left to the town, and this has access all the way down to New Pond. And it was deeded to the town, and what they're proposing is to install a turnaround, a drop-off area, and then a pathway down to the water, and then maybe clean up some access at the water itself. We had some questions on this one, because it also includes installing a path from Adams Farm along North Street to this, and then you would, to this area, and then you would have to cross the street. You know, the road's very narrow, there's no sidewalks or anything there, and that's why they proposed to build a path. A few of us in the committee weren't in favor of this, and we asked about maybe putting some parking right on the site for maybe 8, 10, 12 cars or something, but it's in the deed that there would be no parking on this parcel, so for anybody to go there, they would actually have to park someplace else, like at Adams Farm, and that's why it would be too, there's a need to build a pathway to that area. So this includes tree removal, making the path, and yeah, making the path, and that would be about it, I guess, for now. So the total request for this was for $42,436. The town administrator recommended $20,000, which that's what the capital budget committee voted for, and we're thinking that this will give them a start, and maybe some of this work can be done in-house to save a little bit of money anyway, so. Lisa?
Through you, I love the idea of town access to New Pond, and I appreciate if we can't park on that side, we can't park, but you're describing a turnaround where people could like drive down, drop.
No, it would just be a drop-off. I think there's, if you got the packet, there's a map in there, there's a few
not in there.
diagrams, but.
Okay, I was gonna say, I don't recall.
It's not in their packet?
No, I just gave this.
No, okay.
What I was gonna ask was, could you drop off like a kayak?
Yeah, so you'd be, my understanding is you'd be able to drop off your equipment like a kayak and maybe kids or something like that, and then you would go park the car over at Adams Farm and then walk back, but, I can't recall the size of the drop-off area, but I don't think it would be that big. It'd just be probably a pull-off to turn around, and then
Sure,
maybe one or two
sure.
vehicles could stay in there at one time.
So if that can happen for 20,000, what were you hoping to happen for 46?
I'll tell you, I'm the one who made the recommendation. I saw that, and my thought on this one is, you know, it would be great to, let's start this program, as Ed mentioned. See what we can do in-house. I'd be leaning someone on DPW to do a lot of that work, so we wouldn't have to pay for the labor there. I'd like to see how far we can get it, and then if we need to come back next year, we will. And I had asked the question, and I didn't get an answer, is they have this Wetlands Protections Fund, which is what they bought this land with. Could you ever dip into that? And I don't believe that the Conservation Commission has been able to meet to consider that such a request. So those are the two items off the top of my head I was thinking.
Yeah, yeah, okay. But do you think that eventually that could be either a canoe kayak launch or even a boat launch?
Definitely a kayak lot. Yeah, that's the whole reason that
Yeah.
the select board were really pleased to acquire that land along with the conservation. And one of my members, we dated back to the 90s, and he said, we were trying to do this back in the 90s. This is great. He was really excited for it, and that's the whole point, is let's put some kayaks in there and canoes.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I was just gonna add, a resident at a meeting last night brought up the fact that Carol Lane, who is a longtime member of the Finance Committee and the Capital Budget Committee, and her husband, both, they had both passed away, and they recommended funding for a dock at that pond. So, you know, once all of this gets built in, maybe those funds could be used to build a dock so you could, you know, put your kayak in the water or whatever, so.
Let me just go to Brine first. Brine, you got your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Denny. I just have some questions. I know the people that own land around the pond actually do not own the land at the pond. I believe there's an association that owns that land. And just wondering if the town has looked into that. I'm not sure the kind of the rights. I'm a member at the North Walpole Fish and Game Club, and that's why I just know that the abutters don't own the land to the pond.
Right.
Yes, the Ponds River Watershed Association owns it.
I think Landis is raising her hand there, so.
Yep.
She's muted.
Yeah, you're muted. Yeah, there she goes.
Yep,
Hi, yeah, I was just waiting to speak. So just to clarify a few things, the Conservation Commission purchased for a very small amount of money this parcel from New England Forestry Foundation. The land does not abut Willett Pond. The land abuts the land that's owned by Neponset Land Holdings. But it does abut an area which was provided as a public access easement. So like the beach on Brook Street, which some people may be familiar with, where the public can have access to the pond, there's a second area which is adjacent to this parcel. And that was the main reason why the Conservation Commission and other people were interested in purchasing it. So we would be allowed, based on this public access easement, to put a dock and have the public cross from the public town-owned land onto the Neponset land and launch a canoe from that spot. So that was one of the main reasons for purchasing property. The $42,000 was worked out with the assistant town engineer, and it included an area where 2 cars could probably pull off safely from North Street and unload, and then drive their car up to Adams Farm and park it. There is land adjacent to North Street, and the North Street right-of-way is quite wide on the Adams Street Farm, where you already can walk down from Adams Farm along that area. There's just no formal path. So you can walk from Adams Farm, go through an opening, there's a little pump house, walk through the fields, and get down to that property. What we would do is make more of a formal path. So people knew that they could walk down there. I have been talking to the town engineer about putting we would like to put a crosswalk there and some signage so people know that there is a pedestrian crosswalk there, because we do realize that it can be a very busy spot. So we would also work with the engineering department on that.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other? Yep.
I think it was answered. I think my biggest concern would be that the crosswalk and the safety there, just having little kids darting across the street. So that in that money, which is only $20,000, we're hoping to also put a crosswalk in.
Well,
Would that be
it would be a
incorporated in that
painted
figure?
crosswalk. It would be a painted crosswalk. So, right. So originally the request was 42. We have 20. So we're going to have to start the process and add on as we go along.
Thank you.
Just curious, so then at Adams Farm, you would enter Adams Farm and eventually, like, there'd be a little parking lot there? I mean, you're not gonna drive all the way up to the house at Adams Farm and park in the parking lot, right? You're gonna park along the road as you first get in? Or you're gonna look to have a parking space there for cars?
Not necessarily. I mean, this parcel is going to be really for someone who enjoys walking trails, someone who wants to, either enjoy it enough to want to carry their kayak or canoe a distance, because it is a distance. But the land can also be used by launching from the beach on Brook Street and paddling over to our parcel and getting out and enjoying that area. So it's going to be more of a nature area for people who really want to get there. That answers your question. So because
Yeah, no, it answers my question. I'm just, in my
Yeah.
head, I'm thinking, I drive down North Street, I pull into this area, I offload my kayak, I drive
Yeah.
my car, I'm gonna pull right into Adams Farm and park right off the
Park.
side of the road, because I don't wanna walk the whole driveway. Then I'm gonna walk back to this place, pick up my kayak, walk down to the pond, get on the dock, kayak, and then repeat the whole thing. I'm exhausted just talking about it. So I'm just kind of wondering, I mean,
I hear ya.
it's a lot of money and I just wonder how many but if there's obviously enthusiasm for it.
Some people will do it. Some people will do it. I bike 30 miles, so
Okay.
there's lots of people that that like to hike a lot. So it's not. That's why it's not going to be mounds of people going to this, like the old beach up in Norwood. It's going to be people who really want to go down to the pond and either launch a canoe or go down to the pond and sit on a bench and, look
Great.
at the
Okay.
eagle
Thank you.
that's somewhere out there.
Thank you.
All right.
Welcome.
Why don't we keep moving on?
Excuse me?
I think we're good.
Okay.
You
All right,
good?
okay.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, the next from the Conservation Commission would be the Memorial Pond water treatment. This treatment would eliminate a lot of the nuisance vegetation. This is only a one-year treatment, and this would be for the vegetation on the back part of the pond over near Diamond Street, which was not part of the dredging. Like I said, many times we've done a 3-year treatment, but this here is just a 1-year treatment, and that's for $8,750, and that was a request, and that is what the town administrator and the capital budget committee has requested.
Excellent.
Next would be, the request was from the school department. This would be the Walpole High School Design Services. This would follow up the recommendations. The design would follow up the recommendations from the feasibility study, which is still in review with the school department and the administration. It's not funded at this time. We're waiting till the review is completed, and then we try to locate a funding source for it. That request was for $3 million, and it's not recommended by the town administrator, and the capital budget committee took no action on it. I don't know if...
So I'll touch base a little bit, if you don't mind, Ed, on all these school requests here. You'll see here, the only recommendation at this time is the elementary STEM labs, which in my head, they had asked for 400 for the 4 elementary schools. I thought, just using simple math, let's go with 75 a school and go from there. All those other requests here, the high school design services, middle school contingency, at the request of some of the school committee members, as I previously mentioned earlier this week, we held off on some of those items and funding those. Hit the brakes. Let's see where the bids come in at for the middle school. We haven't even reached 90% design yet on that one, so they had asked to hold back some money on that in case it was needed in the spring. Same with the high school. As far as the HVAC that's something I think is important for multiple reasons. One, I have a sophomore who's up at the high school now, and she informed me it was so hot, Dad, up there. I was sweating as I was sitting there during class yesterday, the first day. I think the superintendent told me it was 92 degrees up there, I think on Monday or Tuesday, so it's getting pretty hot up there. It's needed. Two, I look at it as a way of probably saving money and cutting down their bills. It'll likely be electric and more energy efficient. It's going to reduce our carbon footprint. The reason I'm not recommending funding it at this time is I'm hoping, as we did with the LED street program, we'll be able to get some green incentive money. Those grants likely come out between the January-March timeframe and go for funding on that. And if there's a difference needed, I've also reminded the select board that that's one of the specific uses of those ARPA funds that the select board has access to at this time. So I'm optimistic we could go there. As far as the Elm Street traffic signal, again, my kids go to Elm. I understand how much of a disaster that can be some mornings. We have a project that's on the next select board's agenda to possibly develop the Gilmore site as a friendly 40B project. One of the items I'm likely going to be asking for is that since the children will likely be attending the Elm Street school there, who attend that school, then this is my starting point. To ask for some funds to offset the cost of that one. So we're at the beginning stages of that, and honestly, the traffic study was just wrapped up within the last 6 months, so it's not very old at all. And the HVAC installation, honestly, that's never even been on the 5-year plan. I know that's a wish list for some of the school administrators, like to see that eventually funded and phased in over time, but again, we got a lot of projects there, and it's kind of the background behind my recommendations there.
So we have questions on the, why don't we just take it as that whole package there? Any questions? Yeah, go ahead. No, go right ahead.
Do we know when the high school design services might be complete?
The complete design, if we go forward 100%. We are still going, we're moving forward with schematic services, design services with Compass and TAP A, who are also coincidentally designing and overseeing the project at the middle school. They're probably, what do they say, Patrick, out to maybe next fall sometime? Yeah. So we haven't lost momentum on that project. They're still continuing on. We're using, last fall, we had an appropriation, I believe it was $400,000, and then there's some other small monies out there that was available. So we're still using those money. Again, I don't want to lose momentum on such a project, but we're not losing any time by not funding it at this time.
Thank you.
The HVAC, I just recommend that be prioritized, and not only for comfort and air conditioning, but also because of filtration for a future pandemic, and being able to keep the schools open during the next pandemic.
I agree.
Mark?
I'm just curious, on the 300,000 for the STEM labs, what does that entail?
So I'm Mike Fresh, school business administrator for the school department. So there are 4 elementary schools that are involved with this, and we have traditional media centers that if you walked into, you would think you were in like the Walpole Library, bookshelves and very straightforward media centers. We're looking to convert those with our new hire of 4 STEM teachers at the 4 elementary schools into what we call STEM labs. So making flexible furniture, purchasing flexible furniture, tables, chairs, so that things can be moved around and reconfigured, kids can work collaboratively. We would have the technology to display and allow the kids to do programming on robotics and things of that sort that you would expect in a STEM lab versus a media center. So it's really two-part. What we're asking for in the $400,000 original request was to outfit these media centers with the equipment, the furniture, the kind of hard things that we think of. Behind the scenes, we're also funding some of the initiative with the school department budget to do the supplies, materials, the equipment to give the teachers who are now in those spaces the equipment they need to do the day-to-day instruction. So it's kind of two-part, but the $400,000 was a much larger part of the project.
Okay, and so all schools would be created equal?
Yes, that's one of our concerns that we have, is that there's equity throughout those 4 schools, because they are in different places. So we have 2 schools that are older. The media centers look like when they were built. And then we have 2, Elm Street and Boyden School, were renovated in the 2000s, and they have nice-looking media centers that need less work. So we're kind of playing around with the numbers to get us to a nice equitable level of service for all kids.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Any other questions? And just for the, why don't we, that actually worked better. Why don't we just try to take them as a group, give the quick overview, and so we're not going all evening.
That's pretty much for the schools, right?
Yep.
Okay, cultural recreation, downtown recreation, elements and activities. This is for outdoor activities. I don't know if you guys got the brochure with some of the games. These are outdoor games. Is something that would be permanent, made of concrete. There's like a cornhole game that they would have, and also I'm not sure what you call the game, but you throw the strings with the balls and catches the thing, but I don't know if you got them in. But they were looking to install these around town just for some activities, so, okay? Their request was $10,000, and that was recommended both town administrator and capital budget committee. Next would be the 300th anniversary committee expenses. This would be to build up funds for the celebration in 2024. Some of the stuff included in that would be parade, other activities, fireworks, and it would actually be like seed money to secure vendors for that celebration. Committee's still working on it, but they would like to just some seed money to get things going on that. there, right?
I was just whispering to Patrick, how much did Norwood spend on their anniversary at their 150? It was 600 total. And last year we put aside, do you remember, $50,000. I just don't want us to get behind on this one. I want to make sure that the 300th committee is building their momentum on this one, and they're meeting every month and staying active here. So, sorry, just some follow-up there.
No problem.
Yeah, I think Mr. Buckley told us they also have a website up, and if you have suggestions or anything that you would like to see, that can be done for the celebration to, go to the meetings or go on the website and make the suggestions. If there's nothing else, next would be the Blackburn Hall improvements. This would be working off of the Weston Sampson facility study. It would include working on some site drainage, repairs to the interior and exterior that may have been damaged through the years. Also includes interior accessibility improvements, bathroom renovations, and a main entrance accessibility. The request was for $540,000. Town administrator and capital budget are recommending $420,000 out of free cash for this. Next would be the Center and South Walpole Pool Design Services. This would be designs to replace both of the pools. There's a lot more work that's got to go into this. The actual request for design for just a central pool is $640,000, and the design for the South Walpole pool was $605,000. The figures that came in to replace both pools would be close to $13 million. And Town Administrator and the Capital Budget Committee are recommending $250,000 right now to start a study and see what would be best, whether it's one pool or two pools, and what direction we need to go, because a lot of money for pools.
That is a lot of money. Questions on the cultural and recreation requests? Excellent.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I know we're just looking at design, but how long will the pools last? Like, how long do each of the pools have as far as, like,
What do you mean, how long?
expectancy of surviving the next couple?
Lifespan of the pool, or how long would the design be
The
good for?
lifespan of the pool.
Well, this one is close to 100 years old now, we
Okay.
think, so it's, I think both
All
of
right.
them, so and actually, something's gotta be done, because I think it's 90,000 gallons. We're losing how many? No,
Losing a
How many
lot,
gallons?
yeah.
We're losing a lot of water. I heard, what is it, every 5 days or so, that we could refill the pool with the water that's being lost through the underground piping, so.
It's just
Something's gotta be done pretty soon, so.
Okay. Jeez.
Okay, good?
Yep.
Okay, community and economic development, this was a request for downtown wayfinding and branding. Included in this would be signage for parking, direction, or identifying places of interest, and it would be to create an identity, a branding identity for the town. That request was for $200,000, and it was not recommended by the town administrator or capital budget.
Excellent.
So the total for, you all set? So the
Yep, go ahead.
total, Article 6, the total requests from all of the departments was $14,721,846. Town administrator is recommending $1,993,750. Capital budget voted favorable action for the $1,993,750. With a 7-0-0 vote, and all of that money would be from free cash.
Excellent. Do we have a motion for Article 6?
Motion for favorable action in the amount of $1,993,750, all from free cash.
Second?
Seconded by Mark. And we got to do the roll call.
Oh, yes, because Brian.
Right. Brian?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Audrey?
No.
Jean?
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Adrian?
Is it appropriate to ask a question here?
Sure.
Can I ask a question here? So I guess my biggest concern in what I'm battling with, which I think maybe Audrey is too, for me, 400,000 or whatever it was for air conditioning, and then spending all that money on the party. I know the 300, again, blasphemy, right? This like, couldn't there be more fundraising for this party instead of putting money, like, wouldn't we rather put money into air conditioning for our schools? So I think that's what I'm struggling with right now with voting yes.
Okay. So at the moment, we have a motion.
Yeah, so we vote on that, okay.
So we have to vote on the motion as is, and if we don't get enough now, we can,
Okay,
if we don't get a positive vote, then we can go back and make amendments, but otherwise it would move forward.
I think I'm gonna have to go with no.
Okay? Put you in the wrong spot, sorry. Doug?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lisa?
I appreciate what Adrian brought up. I think we could do some more discussion about HVAC in the schools. So I will also vote no.
Okay. Lisa? Scott?
Yes?
Yeah. Kathleen?
No, I'm torn. I guess if my no helps us reopen and you guys feel better about it, I'm gonna go no.
Okay.
That's how this
That's
usually goes,
one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, no. So the yeses have it. No one abstained, right? Oh, Brian, yeah, I got Brian, never mind. Sorry, you're first on the list. So,
Can I ask a question?
840, yes.
So it was 840, but can I ask a question now?
Yeah.
Sorry. Is there a possibility before we finish for the season to reopen this and discuss it again, or?
So we can always, until it goes, right? No.
We're really tight on time.
So I was gonna say, we don't have much time.
But legally,
You can do whatever
You
you'd
could.
like, yeah. You can do it up to town meeting if you'd like. But to get in the booklet, and I know
Yeah.
Denny had asked me the night, what's my time frame on writing the letter and everything. You can do whatever you'd like.
yeah, we're 2 meetings in and we've had 1 vote, right?
Yeah,
So
this is
if
the
we-
first one, yeah, so.
And now I'm saying, can we reopen the one that we've done? But it is legal to do it, whether or not we do it is the other
Yes,
question.
and we can do it right, as he said, right up till town meeting. All right. So why don't we move on to the next Article 7,
Article 7. All right.
street and,
Yeah, the first request was from the assessor's office, a new vehicle to perform field work, but they pulled that, so there'd be no action on that one there. Next would be the public, with the Public Works. This is the Parks Department, they're looking for a heavy-duty dump truck. It would be a Ford F-450 with a plow. It's a 6-wheel dump truck. This would be a new vehicle to the fleet. Currently, they have more personnel than vehicles, and a lot of times they have to make 2 trips just to get people to and from the work. The request is for $100,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee are recommending.
just keep going, we'll go through each one as a
Okay.
group.
Next would be a swap loader truck, maybe what they would call a hook truck. This would be a 6-wheel a Ford F-550. This would also be new to the fleet. It's a multi-purpose truck with, I think, 3 bodies or maybe 4 bodies. There is, this has a hook on it so you can change the back. This one here would have a flatbed, a chipper box, a dump body, and the other one, there was one other body. This request is for $150,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee have recommended. Next would be in the cemetery department under Public Works. This is for 2 stand-on mowers. This is to replace 2 existing mowers that they have now. They're, reaching the end of their life cycle, and they need to be replaced before they give too much trouble. That request is for $22,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee recommended.
Any questions on the parks and cemetery requests?
Just on the two parks, those are new vehicles, not replacement vehicles? Those are just additional?
Yes, yes.
Excellent.
Okay. Next is vehicle maintenance. This would be to, the vehicles to be replaced. The first one on the agenda here is number 730. The current truck is a 2010 Ford F-150. It's for the engineering department, and this would be replaced in kind with the same type of pickup. Request is $47,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget recommending. Next vehicle would be number 212. This is a 2012 Ford F-150 with a plow. It's designated to the highway department, and it is actually the foreman's vehicle, the highway foreman's vehicle. That would be replaced in kind. The request is for $71,000, and that is what is recommended by the town administrator and the capital budget committee. Next would be vehicle number 202. This is a 2008 Sterling dump truck with a sander. It is designated to the highway department. This is a 10-wheel dump truck. What we were told is that this truck does not owe anything to the town. It's been served the town very well. One of the biggest problems is Sterling has been out of business for a number of years now, and parts are very hard to get for this for repairs. That request was for $320,000, and that is what is recommended by the capital budget and the town administrator. Next vehicle would be number 307. It's a 2012 Ford F-250 six-wheel dump truck with a plow. This goes to the Parks Department. This would be replacing the existing F-250 in that department. Request was for $75,000, and that is what is recommended by the town administrator and capital budget committee. Next is a battery-operated pallet lift. This would, at the vehicle maintenance garage, new garage downtown, the storage of a lot of the supplies are up on the second floor, and there's really no way to access the second floor with all of the parts. Currently, they're using a front-end loader to come into the garage, which is hard to maneuver and bring the larger items up and down to the second floor. So this pallet lift would actually be like in a permanent place and whatever, and it could bring the material up and down to the second floor. That request was for $10,000, and that is what is recommended by the town administrator and capital budget. Next would be a new 3/4-ton utility body truck with a plow. I think, yeah, this would be like a F-250. And this would be to the building maintenance department, and this would also be new to the fleet. There are currently more personnel than vehicles in that department. And also, there's a need for another plow, as we told outside contractors for plowing are harder and harder to get with the expenses that they have to incur just to plow for the town. So this is a request of $72,000, and that is what is recommended by the town administrator and the capital budget committee.
Any questions on this group?
I have two. My first question is for the replacement ones, are most of them being scrapped, or are we trying to get?
We serve most of them.
Okay, okay.
We actually do online auctions. We just did 4 or 5 just within the last month or so.
So this is the gross cost of what a replacement vehicle, it's not net of sale or anything?
Yeah.
Okay. And my second question is for the battery-operated lift. It sounds like that's a safety replacement type thing, using a front-end loader to do something that maybe the lift would be more appropriate? Okay, thank you.
You asked my first question, so thank you. The second one I had was, what brand is gonna replace the Sterling? What kind of truck is it gonna be?
Probably a Mack. I don't know, but it. Yeah. I mean, everything is on the bid list through the state, right? So it's, what would work out the best, so.
Cars are pretty, or trucks, and I suppose this goes for all of the vehicles on here, are really overpriced these days. And is there any, for some of these, to wait until the prices are a bit better? I won't speak to the Sterling or any of this.
I don't anticipate that happening, but all of these vehicles are bought off of the state bid list anyway, so we're really not gonna, I mean, these are the best we can get, the best dollar figure we can get for these things, so I don't know if.
I mean, that truck you're looking at, just the one at the top, the F-150, I think the retail probably now is 55, 60,000. It's incredible value what they get, and I know that Rick talked to capital budget a little bit about it last night. In the past, up until about this year, vehicle maintenance superintendent has focused mostly on replacing the smaller trucks with Fords. He's since branched off of that because of the supply issues. We recently purchased 3 or 4 new Chevy Colorados instead of Ford Rangers. We were actually able to realize, some savings, a few $1,000s for those purchases. But right now, we are still getting the best value. It's far less than you or I could pay for a car on our own. Yeah.
Thank you.
Doug, do you have a question?
Question about the battery-operated pallet lift. Did you say it was gonna be permanent? Is it gonna be installed?
No,
Or it's gonna be?
It's probably gonna
It's
move
a
up,
mobile,
yeah.
it's a mobile electric pallet lift jack, so it's not stationary.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, also that Rick mentioned last night, the truck that we approved on the the Springtown meeting, he just got a build date. We just got a build date on that, which is,
Yeah, it was
Right.
not 10 months before we got the build date on the truck. And the projected delivery now is November, December. So it'll be over a year.
We're getting there.
This is the same thing that we saw with the ambulance and
Yeah.
the 2 fire engines that we purchased. These larger scale trucks, the delivery is just so far out for them. I mean, the fire truck, the 2 fire engines last year at this time when you appropriated it, I remember sitting in here, 365-day build. We put the order the day after town meeting when we had the appropriation, and they said, oh, sorry, it's now 700 days. So it just, same with the ambulance. Tommy reminds me every time I go down the garage, the newest ambulance has, last time I checked, 66,000 miles on it, and the other 2 had 88 and 86. That's a lot we're running to Brockton and Needham rather than Norwood, too.
Yeah.
So I'm off on a tangent, but these vehicles now take so much time, and that's one of the reasons with the loaders on there, and further down, the case backhoe replacements on there, just the timeout, they sit in our account. We don't pay for the vehicles up front. We don't pay for them until we actually purchase them. We need the appropriation so we can go out and procure the vehicles.
Excellent.
okay, so the total for the vehicles was, total request for those vehicles was $595,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee has recommended for those vehicles just listed.
Yep, we'll keep going.
Next would be the highway department. This would be for a new 2022 heavy-duty dump truck with a plow. This would be for the highway department. This would be new to the fleet. It'd mostly be for snow removal, and like I mentioned before, it's harder and harder every year to get contractors for snow removal. So we have personnel in town, and we just need vehicles for them. So our request is for $95,000, and that is what is recommended by the town administrator and capital budget. Next would be a John Deere 624 loader. This would also be new to the fleet, and it is also needed for snow removal. These are great for pushing back bankings when the snow gets too high and whatever, but there's a need for it because we also need maybe one of the older machines to load trucks at the salt bin down at the DPW garage. This request is for $290,000, and that is what is recommended by the town administrator and capital budget. Next would be a salt brine maker. This would allow the town to produce its own salt brine, and this is used for pre-treating mostly in snowstorms. And as it was explained to us, that this is like an anti-freezing agent that would go down first. It's not like a melting agent, but it's an anti-freezing, so the snow or ice would not stick to the road surface, and it'd be easy to plow and scrape. And that request was for $24,000, and that was recommended by the town administrator and the capital budget. Next would be a portable screen plan. This would allow the town to screen gravel and even like the material at Robbins Road site to be able to be reused. The screening would take out the bigger rocks and any other debris that would be too big for backfilling or whatever. So that request is for $92,000, and that is what is recommended by the capital budget committee and the town administrator. So the total request for these highway department items is $501,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee voted favorable action on, and that all would be out of free cash.
Yeah, Justin?
Through you, could we anticipate if we have our own salt brine maker that we're no longer paying somebody to make salt
Well,
brine for us?
actually, if I reckon, yeah,
It would,
Like a
it
maker
would,
pickle.
Sharon.
it would be used to supplement what we take in bulk delivery, should we run into supply chain issues with the current vendor to deliver the brine to us. This would allow us to make it.
So we wouldn't be using this as a first resort?
No. Supplemental to
Just a backup.
the bulk.
A backup briner?
How often do you have salt brine issues that you need
Depends on how many times it snows.
in the past 5 years?
Quite honestly, we've never used brine yet. That truck that we just spoke of earlier that had the long delivery and build time, that was our main component. Once we receive that, that will be equipped with a brine applicator. And the whole concept of a brine application is it allows you to pre-treat the roads up to 2 days, maybe even 3 days before the storm, as opposed to like a conventional rock salt application. It sticks to the surface better, it gets into the cracks, and it's not intended to melt ice. It's intended to prevent the ice from packing on the road.
Sorry, one more question. Is it more environmentally friendly than rock salt?
It's still a chloride-based product, so no.
Okay.
But it's a treatment to
Correct.
keep the roads from freezing
As I
ahead
said,
of
it's
time.
an anti-icing as opposed to de-icing.
Other questions?
How big is this maker and where's it gonna be stored?
The maker, I believe, is 1,000 gallons, and it'll be located in proximity to the existing salt shed, because we need a water source and a power source.
Thank you.
Think we're good?
Okay, next, be on to the police department. First request is an unmarked cruiser. This would be new to the fleet. It's an unmarked cruiser, but it would have a light package, a concealed light package on it. This would be a lieutenant's vehicle. Currently, there are 2 lieutenants sharing a vehicle right now, so this would give them each a vehicle. The request is for $48,000, and that is what is recommended by the town administrator and capital budget committee. Next on the list is a Taser replacement. This would be for 50 tasers with 60 battery packs. The new tasers have upgrade technology. The current tasers are reaching the end of their life cycle, which is about a 5-year lifespan. That request is for $121,200, and the town administrator and capital budget committee vote are recommending that amount of $121,200. Next would be portable radio equipment. This would be for approximately 5 new radios with maybe 30 to 35 battery packs. This would be for new hires and also give the department some spare units in case there was a breakdown with any of the others. That request is for $25,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee are recommending. Next is the IT maintenance and replacement system. This would be phase 1 of 4 phases to replace the 47 desktops and the servers in the police department. This is the current ones are about 6 years old. By the end of by the time, by the end of the 4 years of replacing these, those units will be 10 years old and, you know, behind in technology. So that request is for $12,000 this year, and that is what is recommended by the Capital Budget Committee and the Town Administrator. And that would also be out of free cash. Next for the police department would be AED replacements. These are the automatic external defibrillators. This would be to be replace 5 of the aging AEDs. They are reaching the end of the life cycle, and they're an important equipment for the police department. The request is for $8,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee are recommending. Next would be simulation training equipment. This training equipment would be for real-life training ability to the police department. It would actually have 10 outfits for the officers, and it would also include 10 Smith & Wesson blue guns, which I understand are more like paint guns type, so they would actually be doing it. And part of the outfits are helmets, chest protectors, groin protectors, and whatever. So, you know, it'll help them in the training process. The request is for $14,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee are recommending. Next would be a Mark Cruiser. This would be to replace an existing Mark Cruiser. In the past, these cruisers are usually included in the operating budget, but they weren't this year, just to make the police budget balance out to work correctly. That request is for $58,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee are recommending. Next would be an unmarked cruiser. This would be to replace an existing unmarked cruiser. This is used for detectives for undercover work. The make and model are undisclosed, so to keep, you know, it's not for public knowledge. So that request is for $40,000, and that is what the town administrator and the capital budget committee have recommended. So anything on the police department?
Any questions? Kathleen?
Through you. IT maintenance replacement, phase 1 of 4. So as you said, a 10-year computer is an old computer. What's the plan going forward, though? Because by the time we get to year 4, we already have 4-year-old computers sitting there. Seems like this is a never-ending.
So the IT replacement, I'm sorry, Rob Kilroy, Deputy Chief of Police. So the IT replacement is, the initial project is a 4-year plan, but we hope to continue have a rolling replacement system. Sort of like what we've done with our AEDs, the external defibrillators. We have a continual system where we are out replacing the older technology with new technology to make smaller purchases rather than waiting for things to fail and coming back to you looking for one large expenditure.
So would it ultimately come out of capital budget, or will it always be a capital budget request? Like, would it be a planned, we're just putting money aside for this?
Yes, essentially, it was sort of like I said, it's the exact same thing as what we've done with our external defibrillators, is that it's a continual, it will be coming back more or less yearly for the smaller amounts, rather than, like I said, waiting for a mass failure and having to come back for a larger amount. So we're looking at
I get that, but, sorry to interrupt you, but my other question was about the AEDs. So we're replacing 5 out of how many do we have?
We currently have 20, I believe.
So that's the same sort of thing? If
Yes.
we keep doing a quarter of what we...
Yes, I believe this is actually the 3rd year since we've begun that project. And as these age out, obviously this is critical technology to have out in the field in regards to life-saving measures. So we make sure that we have the most current technology available, and they age out about 5 years in. So we're able to replace the entire system we have on an ongoing basis about every 4 to 5 years.
I have no doubt that we need to keep these current. I guess my question is more like, we got into a situation where we'll have 10-year-old technology on a desktop. How do we make sure that we don't get into that situation again? And you're saying to me that this will be an ongoing...
Yes, so essentially, by the end of the 4 years, we'll have replaced everything. So by the 5th year, we'll be coming back around to the beginning of it again. So the 10-year technology will have been phased out by that point, and we'll be now looking at like 5-year technologies, which is much more palatable.
And then if the town administrator needs to start to budget for it and ensure that the police department has what they need in their budget for an ongoing expense, he will figure out a way to do so.
Thank you, you understand me.
I knew what you were getting at.
That would justify fiscal quarter. At this point now, we're trying to get going with this, and we gotta reevaluate the finance fiscal.
This is something similar to what, further down, you get a $900,000 request from the school department, and my school business manager and the superintendent and I have talked about it. Yes, ideally, I'd like to have this budgeted, these types of items budgeted in these department budgets. One of the items that's not on here is borrowing for the roadways, and that's what we're trying to do. The auditors called us out for. Since you're borrowing $200,000 or $400,000 each year for the roadways, you should just more or less budget for that in the highway budget. And one of the reasons I'm not borrowing or requesting a borrowing this year is we're going to, starting next year, we're going to try to put the money that was borrowed down in the debt budget up to the highway budget and just have that as an ongoing reoccurring expense. I'm asking the schools to begin to plan for that eventually, and we'll do the same on the police side too.
Well, I've been around long enough to remember when we had the computer foundation that had to provide our computers, so we've made significant progress.
For everything.
Josette?
I believe also with the IT equipment, Kathleen, that when they built the new building, they didn't update. That was something that they just transferred their computers and stuff over to the new building. They didn't put in for brand-new equipment. So this is kind of part of an update too.
No, that's actually not true.
Okay, I'm
what we-
sorry.
Inaccurate. So when we did build the new building, we purchased all new desktops and servers. We moved in 4 years ago. However, the equipment was actually purchased 2 years before that.
Okay,
So it was a little bit older at the time.
Exactly.
But the equipment we had in the old building did not come with us.
so what did you not take to the new building?
I don't think we took anything with us for the new building.
Nothing for the new building, but I thought there was something you procrastinated with filling because of money?
She might be thinking of that 911 system that Joey purchased before we moved over. You guys were desperate for. Maybe? Yeah.
I'm not entirely positive.
Okay, no problem, thank you.
I think I got Brian up there, then Lisa, then Mark.
Yep. Thanks, Denny. Just a question on the 3 vehicles. Are they fully equipped, or is this just for the vehicle? And if it's just for the vehicle, can the equipment and the ones being traded in be utilized?
That would be with new equipment. I think the only thing is maybe the computer would be changed, but it would include the new lights and everything else.
Thank you.
Lisa?
Through you, my question is also to do with the vehicles and more broadly with the issue of revolving predictable expenses of replacing things. I really would like to see these things coming in the department budgets. It's just more clear, it's more honest. We know these expenses are on a program, and I understand things wear out, and it doesn't really make sense to me to just pop it into capital budget because you wanted the police department budget to work. Because it doesn't work if those things that you knew you had to buy are not in the budget. But specifically on the vehicles, assuming that you do have to replace all your cruisers over however many years, what is the replacement schedule roughly, is it number of miles on a car? Is it the number of years you've had it? How does that work?
Not to interrupt, sorry.
No, that's all. Go ahead.
Roughly, it's about every 3 years that a marked patrol unit comes off the line, and we're switching them out. The unmarked units last much longer because they are used in a different fashion. But in regards to a marked police cruiser that you see on the road every day, they're on the road 24/7. They usually come off, get cycled out about every 3 years or so. It's a warranty issue. They begin to show wear and tear around those ages, and they start reaching up higher mileage, which cause more expensive maintenance programs. It's about every 3 years, so to answer your question.
3 years seems high to me. And the unmarked, you would say longer, like 6 years?
It depends. The one we're looking to replace on the capital budget this year is 9 years old. So that one made it quite a while. It has 81,000 miles on it over the course of 9 years, whereas a marked cruiser would hit 81,000 miles in about 3 years, just due to the frequent use that it has.
Okay. And then in general, you know, I see cruisers sometimes, you know, parked in people's driveways, and I just wonder, you know, do you have extra cruisers? Like, is there one vehicle for everyone that's on the force, or just for the people who are working that day?
No, so we have 9 marked cruisers in our, 10 cruisers in our patrol fleet right now, one of which is much older and it's kind of been relegated to traffic details. So we have 9 daily use police cruisers. On any given day, we can have anywhere from 4 to 6 officers working. So they are cycled out between shifts. Somebody will come in and use one of the cruisers during the day shift. The 4 to 12 guy will use that cruiser, the midnight guy will use that cruiser. So the cruisers are on the road on all 3 shifts throughout a variety of offices.
But the lieutenants are not able to share one?
No, so, we have 3 lieutenants right now, all operating onto 1 cruiser. They all work the day shift. So, from my own experience, I know that we would come out sometimes and the vehicle would be gone and one of the other lieutenants would grab it, and I would have to go to a meeting, and if the cruiser wasn't there, I'd have to find a marked cruiser. If there wasn't a cruiser, I had to use my own personal vehicle. So it is a little difficult to use 1 cruiser for 3 lieutenants at this point.
Thank you.
How many vehicles are there in the police department?
We have 10, as I just mentioned, 10 marked cruisers for our fleet, one of which is, like I said, relegated to traffic duty at this point. We also have 10 unmarked units at this point. We have 5 assigned to the detective unit, the chief, myself, and then 1 cruiser for the lieutenant. We have a utility pickup that's also marked, however, that's not patrol rated, it's just a utility vehicle.
How many of them are take-home vehicles?
2.
3 technically.
3, you're right, I'm sorry, 3.
So 3, the officers take the vehicles home, they're available for them at any one time, at any
Yes.
time? Okay. Just, I'm curious about the pricing. Here, there's 58,000, 40,000, and 48,000, why the difference between the?
So the initial, the one that we have listed for 48,000, it's an unmarked unit. The unmarked units are always less expensive than a fully marked cruiser due to equipment reasons. That's a new addition to the fleet, so it was full price on the 58,000, or the one that we have slated for a trade-in for a marked unit, is a trade-in, so it's an adjusted value there. And the $40,000 one is based on past experience in regards to an unmarked unit, where we did not go with a traditional unmarked unit. We started changing things up to help with the mission of the department and the mission of the detective unit, in regards to finding less traditional police-type models. I believe, I don't remember the exact amount, but it came in a little bit less last time when we did this.
Okay. The training equipment, is this like new training equipment, or are you replacing existing?
The simulations training equipment? Yes, this will all be a new addition to the department in regards to training. It'll help us provide more realistic, real-world training in regards to developing scenarios for all sorts of things we encounter every day.
I'm curious, the paintballs that they use, are they washable?
Yes, it's like an advanced paintball. It's almost like they shoot legitimate, what appear to be bullets, rounds, but they're actually soap cartridges. So they leave markings such as like you would with a paintball, but they are soap, so they are washable.
Okay. And then I'm just curious, with the AED equipment and the tasers, I understand the necessity for them. How often are they used?
To be honest, I can't give you an exact number. I can think of examples of where they have been used. I can think of several examples recently where the tasers were on scene, and they were utilized to subdue a subject where lethal force would have been authorized, so thankfully we had those on scene.
So basically, it's not a quantity, it's more of a quality. When you need it, you need it to diffuse the situation. Okay,
Exactly, yes.
great, thank you.
I'm sorry if I'm not picking this up. You said there are 10 unmarked cruisers
Yes.
currently, and how many are in use at one time?
During the day, almost all of them are. Most of them assigned, we have a significant number assigned to the detectives unit, which are obviously outfitted for their mission. We have 3 assigned to the administrative staff, which is, like I said, 5 of us actually using 3 cruisers, so those are always on the move. So, yeah, during the days, they're definitely used almost constantly.
You said almost all the
Yeah.
time? Okay.
Well, like I said, it depends on what they're doing the particular day. They're all utilized during the day, whether they're all used at the exact same time is really up for, is what I think you're trying to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's difficult to say. For an example, we have a number of detectives. Every one of them's working their own caseload. So every one of them could be out of the building at the same time. We could have them in and out throughout the day. There's really no, like, a set schedule in regards to who's be using, what at what particular time. So they are, used throughout the day.
Okay, and for the simunition, simunition training, what were you doing before for training?
We would do the best we can. We have, you would set up scenarios, and we'd conduct the training. However, you wouldn't have the realistic equipment to actually carry out the training. You would improvise, basically. And it's just not the same realism as if you had this equipment handy.
Denny, through you, as we're purchasing vehicles, what is the likelihood that we could get electric vehicles for any of these?
That is always an option. The last 2, I don't know if it was the last 2, but 2 of the recent ones we purchased were hybrid vehicles. That is definitely something we are open to. Much like every other department, this is all a availability issue. If we can get the hybrid vehicles, we'll take them. If we can't, then we take what's available. There are a significant number of police departments all fighting for the same stockpile at this point. So we are definitely open to that, and we have purchased them in the past. And if they're available, we would go that route also.
And again, through you, Denny, sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you know what the price difference would be?
For electric?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we don't. The thing with electric vehicles is there's a lot of testing going on with how they rate in terms of what we need them for.
Sure.
When they don't work.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the reason why we have.
Somebody forgets to plug it in and you gotta go somewhere.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And they run so often, so you almost have to have more cruisers to keep up with the load, to keep them charged.
Mhm.
So that becomes a cost issue as well. So. But the hybrids have been
Great.
good for us, yeah.
Any other questions? Good. Keep moving.
That's it. Next would be the fire department. This is to replace 20 SCBA bottles and air packs. These are self-contained breathing apparatus. They're essential for firefighting equipment. This would replace 20 bottles and 14 air packs. They're all nearing their end of their life cycle. Life cycle for the bottles is usually 15 years and 20 years for the air packs. And the department has a total of 94 bottles, 37 packs. Out of those bottles, there's 4 one-hour bottles, and all of the others are 30-minute bottles. The request was originally for $70,000, but a town administrator and the capital budget committee had doubled that to $140,000. And this money would be taken from the ambulance fund. And excuse me, but I'd like to ask, do we add bottles to these, or what was the request?
Just the 20.
Huh?
Just the 20.
Just the 20?
20 and 14.
Okay. Next would be to replace the 2013 command car. This is the captain's vehicle. The current 2013 vehicle we've passed down to the fire prevention officer. This request is for $60,000, and that is what is recommended by the town administrator and the capital budget. And that would be also from the ambulance fund. And that would actually be it for the request in the fire department.
Questions on these? All right, good.
All
Keep going.
set. Next would be the school department. The first request there would be a 3-year technology plan. This would provide Chromebooks for all students, including all elementary schools. The elementary students would need to leave the Chromebooks at school, but the junior high and high school are able to take them home. This is only funded for 1 year, as it has become a reoccurring expense and it is trying to be incorporated into the operating budget. So the original request was for $880,000, and the one-year recommendation for $300,000 is what is recommended by the capital budget and the town administrator. The next item would be the elementary school and high school science equipment. This would give the students cutting-edge science related equipment for the teaching of a more modern science curriculum. Equipment would be on a mobile cart so it can be shared in multiple classrooms. That request was for $100,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee have recommended. So on Article 7, the total requests were for $2,906,200, and the capital budget, the town administrator recommended $2,294,200, and that is what the capital budget committee voted favorable action. And free cash would be $2,094,500, and out of the ambulance fund would be $200,000.
I just have a question
I was
on
gonna,
that.
well, yeah, go ahead. We'll cover the last two, and then we'll do any last as a whole.
Okay, so I'm just some more information on the 3-year technology plan. What this is providing Chromebooks?
Yes, Chromebooks and technology, but
So these are our traditional Chromebooks that we use starting before the pandemic, but we really ramped them up during the pandemic. We had about 1,500 more that came in through ARPA funding. So now we've broadened the amount of Chromebooks in the district, and now we need to be on a cycle now to replace them because we have so many of them.
So this is something that the school provides versus the parents buying Chromebooks?
Correct.
And then the high school and the science equipment that they're getting?
You want to know what it is specifically?
No, just
or-
elementary in the school, just an idea of what exactly the equipment is?
So at the elementary level, we have mobile carts. And then in those mobile carts are things like microscopes, speaker glasses, things that, you would use in a science class.
Okay.
And then we were trying to introduce hydroponics, and that's gonna start at the elementary and move up through the high school. So grow lights and things of that sort. This includes grades 3 through 5, and it's carts for grades 3, 4, and 5. The reason we have 11 is because we already have one pilot cart that we did at Elm Street to see if this would work and what was ideal. So these are modeled off of that original cart. And then at the high school, I'll be honest with you, some of the stuff I understand, some of it is literally beyond me. So, there's CRISPR, for those of you who are scientists, understand gene mapping, maybe you could explain it, but it's pretty high-tech stuff. So, and it's, I think Ed used a good word, it's cutting edge. It's so early in the infancy of this technology that we're just trying to introduce it. So there's gotta be some flexibility about what we'll be getting, and is it a chemical, is it mechanical? So there's some figuring of that. So it's CRISPR, gene editing, hydroponics, as I mentioned early, some thermal cameras that you can detect heat detection on, like chemical experiments to see what heat rise and, how often it off-gases or emits heat. 3D printers that are not within our technology budget. And then oscilloscopes. So anyone who does a lot of electronics work, you would see the variation in electromagnetic waves and things of that sort. Again, I couldn't go further. I can get a science teacher in here to probably elaborate much better than I could. So it's, we're really trying to push the envelope with our science curriculum, and this is stuff that has not been available. There are teachers teaching subject matter like this, but they're not able to go beyond where they are. And this will allow them to really progress on to almost college level as you get into the higher grades.
I find it fascinating that high school is the CRISPR, the gene editing. It's a whole new meaning to high school science lab. What they're okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions?
Do the kids in high school, do they just get issued a a Chromebook when they're a freshman and keep the same one for all 4 years, or?
Yep, they cycle through the same device and they turn it in when they graduate. And some of the devices get repurposed to the lower grades where they're still functional, but we've learned 4 to 5 years is pretty much the max you get out of a Chromebook.
Thanks.
On the Chromebook topic, how often are they used in the classroom versus more as a resource at home? And outside the pandemic, obviously, it was for Zooming, but just curious how it's integrated into the curriculum.
Yeah, they use it all the time. I mean, they're in the, especially when you get to the middle and the high school, and then the upper elementary. They don't need to take them home as much, but they're more for in-classroom use.
We've eliminated all the labs, traditional labs that you walk into, except at the high school where they're very specific. There are no more labs because they have them with them all the time.
Any other questions? Got a motion?
If I may, and forgive me if I do this incorrectly, but I would move to strike the line items for the 2 unmarked cruisers and the training equipment with the expectation that they be part of the regular department budget process in the, whatever season we're in, spring, and then the salt brine maker, and then adjust the total accordingly for Article 7. Is that in the form of a motion?
That is a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Can I speak to it?
Sure. Well, now we're going to open it for discussion.
Yeah. So, this kind of goes back to how do I make the budget work? And one of the things that I've cut the last 2 years specifically is a cruiser in each of the police department's budgets to make the budget work and to make it balanced. I've asked the police chief, this chief and the previous chief, no, if I can't make this budget work and balance this budget, add a police officer, add 2 firefighters, I gotta cut something. Select board gave me directives, gave the chiefs directives. We want to continue to add to the departments, grow these departments to allow them to continue to keep up with the ever-growing town. We're 26,000 plus people right now. These are 2 of the items that got cut over the last 2 years. The police department has fallen behind as far as their cruisers. They're using cruisers that are left over. I wouldn't have made this recommendation if I didn't think it was important to keep it in there and to keep these cruisers in there to ensure that these people behind me are able to do their job along with the police officers there. The brine maker, eventually, yeah, that's gonna save us some money, I think, in the long run. The DPW director made a good case to myself and the capital budget committee. That's the reason why they voted 7-0 on these articles. One of the things that I understand some people are new to this committee, but the capital budget committee takes the time to go through, interview each of these department heads, spends 2 hours a night, multiple hours leading up to this meeting tonight where they are charged with presenting the capital budget. We've gone through tonight, we've done the same thing that they've done the last few weeks with departments. In going forward, I'm probably gonna ask the chair, if FinCom members wanna specifically question department heads, 1 item at a time, please go to the capital budget committee so we can do this ahead of time and hash this out. But I'd strongly recommend not to cut those two police cruisers as part of this. That's just my case for it.
I understand your frustration, and I know that we want to move this along because it's a short season. But I hope that the message, at least from me as a member of this committee, is we would love to see an effort to move things that are recurring expenses, that are predictable, moved over time to an operating budget. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you, is that if that's part of the cost of doing business, then we need to try to figure out how we budget that in a regular cycle. And maybe it means that we're slightly less conservative in our, and you know I love that about you, is that you're conservative in your budgeting.
We did it this year. We were over, in my opinion, and the finance director's opinion, the directive from the select board and this committee went along with it. We want you to be less conservative with your estimates. We did it this year. I don't know if we're gonna meet, I think we'll meet them, but I don't think we'll have a lot of free cash next year. So, message received on that one. But we also, I remember explaining to you, their expenses were cut. Why were they cut? The cruises went, we'll fund that through capital budget, hopefully if with free cash. So, message received. Lisa?
I think it's absolutely true that there's so much to be hammered out. This is an enormous amount of requests, and I appreciate that capital budget, does the deep dive. I also hear just chatter in the town and at town meeting about, spend, spend, spend. They, I guess, we spend, on everything, and it is hard to find that line between, rubber stamping what somebody else has, discussed, or thinking, are we the body to discuss it? And I don't think it's ever a bad idea for more Walpole citizens to hear these requests and discuss them. I think sometimes when it comes up at town meeting, even though I hate spending 3 hours talking about $20,000, that's important so that they understand that there is no they. It's all we. We are all working together to spend our money. So if it's not possible for capital budget and FinCom and town meeting to discuss all the items, which it really isn't, we can make some choices. We might say, all right, FinCom needs more time because we want to discuss these in more detail, because we want to be able to say to town meeting, we're behind this, 1500. Or we might say, okay, capital budget has been working all summer on this. We're gonna just take their recommendations. I don't really like that approach. I don't know why we're here if we're just gonna say, fine, capital budget and Jim did it, we trust you. The middle ground exists there somewhere. Specifically on these items, there are any items here where you could pluck them out and say, I just don't like this one, or I don't like that one. I seconded the motion because I think if someone has something to discuss, we always should make time to discuss it. We don't want to be here till midnight. I would just say, the briner for me, if we are using an outside briner and we want to have a backup briner, but yet we've never brined before, it seems a little early to get the backup in place. It's like, let's start the process and see how it goes. But okay, it's only 20,000. The cruisers I have more of an issue with. I would like extreme clarity, not necessarily tonight, but going forward, start to get more clarity about all the vehicles in the town, all the trucks, all the cars, all the things with wheels, all the toys. I would really like to see what is the schedule for replacing them. 3 years to me is a silly number. If there were a mileage number, that would be more impressive to me. So yeah, that in general is something that not just the police, but everybody buying vehicles, I think could be super aware of, are we really squeezing the most out of all these, every 4 years we're gonna buy new cars for everybody? I don't think so. So I think it's reasonable to discuss these things, but we might not have time tonight or this season to do everything in depth.
Well, just quickly, I want to say, on the cars, Lisa, as someone who ran a fleet of 100 and something cars in my old company that were operated 24/7, mileage sounds great, but budget, planning, and everything else, you do need a cycle like this. So I think what they're doing and planning, from having done it in my own life, it is the right model in way to go about doing it. And if you can squeeze an extra year here and there when you get closer, if you need to, when we have tight times, you're gonna get squeezed a year, so you always wanna have that little plan. So I just wanna put that in for.
Well, I think when you're running 120 vehicles, yeah, you might say every 3 years we buy 40. But this is a relatively small fleet, and squeezing out an extra year here or there makes a pretty big difference in our budget.
Yeah, you wanna have it, and when you need to squeeze it, you squeeze it. Don't start squeezing too early. Sorry, I got Jody?
Oh, yeah, so I just wanted to comment on the substitute motion. I get where you're coming from, and it makes sense, but right now, where we are at this point in time, it would be difficult for us to try and find a means for it another way. So what I mean to say is, I think we need some time to plan to shift the philosophy, and rather than doing it now.
Can I just follow up on that? So that's my question. I mean, we have a capital outlay committee. The town has a process. We approve the town meeting in the spring. The capital budget committee reviews the items. We then go over them in the fall. So I don't know, from a process standpoint, that you can really take the vehicles, or let's just say capital equipment, and say, now we want to put it in the police budget, or whoever budget it is, in the spring, because I understand they're two separate things. All capital equipment is supposed to go through the committee. The committee has certain rules and guidelines that should say, every so many years, this is how often we're gonna swap out vehicles, police, fire, depending. And so the process would be in place. So yes, I agree that you take the police budget, then you have to add the capital part, but you have to do that for the DPW, for everyone. For some reason, the town has decided that operations is handled in the spring, the capital committee reviews in the summer, and then we approve the capital part. So I don't see the rationale for moving the vehicles out of this to put into the spring, unless the town fundamentally decides to change its committees and its processes. I think, if withdrawing certain items from here, not approving it, then I think it's one of, I don't agree with the salt thing, the backup, when we haven't tried in the first place. Okay, as a finance committee, we review, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the town meeting members, they get this, and they're able to go in and make modifications to pull the equipment out.
The motion that is presented at town meeting is our motion, so anything that is changed
Right, so if I
here
want to
is
change it,
what-
I go in front of the town and say, I want to change Article 7 and remove the salt finder, or
So
whatever.
the motion that will be presented at town meeting initially is the motion that comes out of, from this
A town
committee.
meeting member would have to make a substitute motion on that article.
Then when they get there, but if a motion is changed here now, that would be, please correct me if I'm wrong.
You're the
This would be the
main
main motion at town meeting if we change this now.
Yes, so you make a change to delete those items, the finance committee will go forward with, call it, 1,400,000, or whatever the rounded down number is. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the next one. 2 point, I don't know.
Well, actually,
one.
so let's get, I want to clarify that now. What, your motion, sorry, when you said
I'm
it,
doing the math. I just want to explain the motion was because of what, this, my first time on FinCom, but being a town meeting rep for some time, I see these budgets come up and these cruisers and other equipment appear on a regular basis. So that's sort of where I'm coming from there. And what I heard from the capital budget committee is that they approved this because they couldn't fit it in the spring. And so that to me doesn't seem like I mean, there may be other reasons there too.
Problem is, and Jody hit the nail on the head, we need, if you want to change the way we're doing things, I need the finance committee to tell me so I can plan accordingly, just as we're doing with the DPW and the streets program. The auditors suggested a change. We are going to phase that in because it's going to take 2 cycles. We're going to need to appropriate this free cash, bump it down in the next fiscal year. If this is the way I take, not only from the select board, but you guys are the main motion on town meeting floor. I work with you on whatever that main motion is. So if you say, going forward, Jim, we want you to, next police budget, we don't want to see these marked cruises on there. Find a way to make it work before it gets to us, so we'll find a way. And it's a lot easier when I finesse the budget and work through it, but to just change it tonight and say, you fund it in the spring, that's probably 2 to 3 extra cruisers I need a budget for in the spring. It just is difficult. And to touch upon that, Patrick just texted me this. We have 178 different registered vehicles, so it's not just the police, it's everything across the board here. So, to your, I think you said 150 vehicles that you were responsible for. It's a big fleet that we oversee, and it just takes planning. It's not saying, no, we can't do this. Just give me some time to plan for that.
at the moment, I have a motion that has been put forward and seconded, so we have to vote on it, correct? So I just want to make sure I have the updated motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I've been on the capital budget committee for about 20 years, and when I first got on, there wasn't a lot of free cash for capital. It was used for other things, and really fell behind on equipment. And it took a number of years to catch up. So the thing is, if you don't fund something this year that's recommended, you're gonna have to fund it next year. So now there might be 2 vehicles that you'd be looking for. So what we've tried to do in the past, and Josette can, verify this, but we tried to stagger purchases so that big number doesn't come up every year for this. So that's why in the 5-year plan, you'll see there's a dump truck this year and then one next year or whatever, instead of, if you put off the dump truck this year, you're gonna have to buy maybe 2 next year or the year after, so you're eventually gonna have to get it. And the thing is, that this equipment is, you can't have the police going around in some unreliable vehicle. I mean, they need it right then, and the same thing with a lot of these trucks and these plows and stuff, who's gonna be the first one to complain that the street's not plowed or something's not done? So, we've worked it out to, stagger purchases like that, but now I think we've hit a little bit of a bump in the road where some of these things that are recurred every year, like even the technology, that, that's a recurrent expense, and it doesn't fit into the capital, the definition of the capital improvement, so, or capital expense. So, I think, it could bite us if you don't replace this stuff. And, you know what, in a town meeting, I don't know if I can remember anybody asking about a certain vehicle, or why are we buying this? Most of the time, it just goes right by. I mean, with all of the time we spend in this stuff, I wouldn't mind having a question once in a while, because, I mean, we do spend a lot of time, and, I don't feel as prepared tonight because it was a short time from our votes last night, but,
No, we got the message. Let's, I'd like to get a vote on the motion as put forward. I just want to make sure we have the right motion. So it is to remove the 2 unmarked cruisers, which is 40, 48, 40, so those 2. So it's 88,000 there, and then was the Briner?
The simunition training equipment and the salt brine, the briner.
So another 14, so 88, 14, and the salt briner.
24.
And if I may, after hearing this, if, I know we have this motion on the table, but I would amend the motion to just remove one of the unmarked cruisers. Because what I also heard is that it's not
I don't
fair.
think you can amend it now.
I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
If you're doing
Right.
math right now,
Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but if I have a second, we have to go all the way.
yeah.
Yeah, we're
Get a vote on her first.
First real night of voting, you guys put me to work here, make me think through.
That's why I'm giving you all the math now.
All right, so the motion would be for,
I got it, Denny. So from free cash would be one, so just to clarify, we took out salt brine maker, one of the unmarked cruisers.
no, the motion was for 2.
2 of the unmarked cruisers, the simunition training, I think that's it, right? The 4 of them?
Yep.
In which case, the motion would be for $1,968,200 from free cash and $200,000 from the ambulance fund, for a total of $2,168,200. I hope somebody else in this room is.
So 1,968,200 from free cash, 200 from the ambulance. Aye. So on the alternative motion, Brian,
No.
Josette,
No,
I'm a no. Audrey,
I'll vote no on this one, too.
okay. Steve's not here. Jean,
No.
Leanne,
No.
Adrian,
No.
Doug,
No.
Mark,
No.
Lisa,
Nope.
Scott?
Nope.
All right, so that's,
I didn't get to vote.
oh, Kathleen, sorry. Sorry, Kathleen.
All right, I'm a no.
So that's 0-12-0 on the alternative motion. So do we have another motion to vote on?
Yes, but before we go through all the math, I don't know if, I'll motion to strike one of the unmarked cruisers, the simunition training equipment, and the salt brine maker.
Before,
could
Well,
we
we-
have
I would-
discussion on
I would-
this
Yeah,
before you,
Before we have a second? Sure.
before we have
Yeah.
a second?
Sure.
I have a bias. My husband was a cop here for 34 years, okay? That's out. The simulation training with what our society is dealing with right now, I think is good money because the state no longer comes up with all the training programs for the police departments across the state as they have previously. So it has become the responsibility, basically, of the individual communities to prepare their officers. And I think whatever, what is it, 14,000 or whatever it is for that specific item, for the potential of saving an officer's life, to have them prepared for the craziness that we have in our society now, is well worth the money. My bias, okay?
Yeah, I would hate, I'm just gonna add, I would hate to see that removed. That's,
Yeah.
I haven't heard of it before.
It's new.
I came out of the security world. I wasn't in the police department, but the more training you can provide, the better, so I'd hate to see that removed. Go ahead, Mark, sorry.
So, just in general, I mean, we get a 5-year plan as to what each department plans to do. So we know ahead of time, this is their plan, so tonight, all these things come up, it shouldn't be a surprise. I think that with the fleet, whether it's fire, police, highway, you know, they're telling us already when they plan to replace these vehicles. They have a process in place that says after so many years, so many miles, this is when we swap them out. So I don't have any concerns, so long as they're following that kind of idea, or again, we're notified ahead of time. I share the comment too about the simulation. I kind of find it interesting, but, you know, we're all sit here with, is it Evaldi, if I mispronounce the name? You know, that was, so if this is gonna help them deal with the situation, it seems like it makes sense to me. So again, I would say that I would approve all these items because, again, they have given us a 5-year plan. We have had an opportunity to see what's planned, and we could talk to them anytime about what they plan to do in '24 or '25. Thanks.
Kathleen?
So through you, a couple of things. I just want to say thank you, Mr. Forsberg, because before you run out of this room screaming, I think you've done a really remarkable effort tonight. In addition to that, I think that what I'm hearing is people are questioning more the funding of things. I don't think anybody's saying the police shouldn't be trained, but where the funds come from, how we budget for it, I think is the bigger discussion, which I would suggest as a group, after what we've heard from our experts, we table until we get through fall town meeting, but we continue to have discussions like this, because I think it's great.
Yeah.
Personally, I think I may have started it off by talking about technology, and I do think some things like AED replacement, we may not be a capital thing, may be something that could be moved over, but maybe the cars always stay as capital. You know, I think that's a bigger discussion. So for me, I don't want anybody out there listening to think that any of us are suggesting, no, the police shouldn't have what they need. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking more about financial concepts and how you fund things.
So being new to the finance committee, but definitely not new to budgeting and finance in general, sounds like a little bit of re-education, because just maybe after we finish getting through town meeting, just how municipal budgeting and capital, because I know capital, but I'm hearing things that to me in my job and my profession don't really sound like capital, so just maybe kind of getting a lay of the land as we continue to serve on this committee for people who just have questions like me and anybody else. Jim Johnson's, you know,
The
school.
door is always open
Okay.
to any new members, and I think I
Yeah.
said that in the emails. Call me. So far, with the new members especially, door's open. Let's make an appointment if you want to talk about it with the whole committee. And that's why I send out these memos beforehand to kind of, I try to address the question before they're asked.
And I will say for, you know, as Mark said, for some of us that have been here for a while, we've seen these plans, we know the process, and this has been the this committee over time has given directive to Jim to be conservative, to let's fund these things through capital budgets rather than put them in, so and if I'm speaking out of school here for the committee, what I've interpreted over the years is Jim's done what we've asked him to do. Now we're asking him to change it back a bit or modify it a bit, so.
I just want to, I'm not, okay, I'm sorry. I'm not doing that in any way. Or, I'm sorry if I led anyone to believe that I'm not understanding the capital budget process, because that's not the case. I don't think these should be in the capital budget. I think I appreciate about training, and I don't think that's a capital expense, but for the training equipment, I'd like to see some efforts to look at grants or other fundings to pay for that, like other departments do, like we did for the Conservation Committee and other things like that. But I appreciate the invitation to come in and ask questions.
I have a question. During COVID, did we procrastinate with ordering a car because of the way we were real conservative?
We were pretty conservative in our capital, actually, if you remember, I believe, and I don't have the free cash numbers in front of me. We agreed, off the top of my head, I believe it was $2.5 million out of whatever that number was. I think it was in $5-6 million range that year. Let's roll it forward and put it in our reserves.
Correct.
That's one of the reasons why our our regular stabilization account is at $9 million and change right now, because of that vote that year. Is we did the bare minimum on these, and we said, we don't know what's coming. You know, is the state going to make 9C cuts, cut their aid? So we were really conservative that year.
So it's kind of, to a little bit of a degree, catching up because of the pandemic and stuff. So I think it's overall a little bit of everything. But I think, you know, you have started with talking about what you have to change, you and Jody and stuff, going forward. And I feel, as a member, a longtime member of this committee and a taxpayer as well, that you and your group have done an outstanding job, and you should be given the time to do what you have to do for the future. You know what your job is. We don't have to micromanage you. If nobody finds fault with that, I think that we've had a winner for an administrator for a long time, and it's like, we've been in the other direction, so let's keep going positive.
So we have a motion on, we've had a discussion. Do we have a second?
What was the motion? I forgot.
The motion,
It was to reduce just by one.
so it was
one
remove
cruiser.
the salt briner, remove the, these are
Simunition.
simunition training,
And one unmarked vehicle.
and to remove one unmarked car. Is that correct?
Right, because I heard them say that it's not clear that, well, not all the unmarked cruisers were used at all times.
Aye. Do we have a
I
second?
mean, you should be specific on which unmarked, because they're two different prices. I would think.
Exactly.
One's 40, one's
There's
40.
two different prices on each of
Yeah.
those cars.
Well, one is the undercover detective car, and the other one was
The
for the
lieutenant's,
lieutenants.
lieutenant vehicle.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter which one gets which one.
One is.
really
It does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
we
does.
do have to be
Price.
specific.
No, I mean, yes.
That's dollar value.
Right, I don't know, the $48,000 one.
Okay. Do we have a second? Seeing no seconds, I will ask, are there any other motions?
Motion for favorable action on Article 7 in the amount of $2,294,500.
Second.
And where the,
$2,094,500 from free cash and $200,000 from the ambulance fund.
and we have a motion from Doug, a second from Josette.
Sorry, Doug, can I just ask, where, free cash, what did you say for free cash?
$2,094,500.
Just 200.
200, yeah.
It's 500 on the sheet.
Well, it's difficult to read.
You know
off the
what?
sheet, which is why was
I think on the
reading
one
it
that
my
Jim
phone.
sent out,
You can't read it.
Motion minus
That
the
was the
200.
one I was asking you about.
We'll go with it. Favorable action.
This is the one that has 500.
Oh, it was the taser thing that changed.
So I wrote two.
okay.
121.2 to 121.5.
Yes.
All right, so we've
Oh,
got,
I am looking at different, I'm looking at a different number.
so I think, yeah, we had an older version, so let's,
They were sent out today.
Yes.
You get one today.
Sorry.
All right, I've,
$2,094,200.
Yep.
Free cash, 200,000 from ambulance fund, for a total of $2,294,200 for Article 7.
all right, so
that's what I meant.
Doug? Moved by Doug, seconded by Josette. Do we have a need for any discussion on that? Okay, good. I'm gonna work down the list. Brian?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Audrey?
No.
Jean?
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
So we have 11-1-0. Perfect.
Excuse me, Pat, would you please repeat that number for the free cash?
$2,074,200 from free cash, $200,000 from the ambulance fund, for a total of $2,294,200.
Thank you.
On to Article 8. Let's just see how. Ready? Yeah. Maybe a quicker summary of it.
All right, next, Article 8, street and drainage improvements. This will be for roads and sidewalks, parking lots, and parking lot resurfacing. This will be done according to the paving master plan. Dedicating, and let's look to dedicate $300,000 to sidewalks this year out of that, to try to catch up on that. The request was $1,150,000, and town administrator and capital budget requesting $600,000. This here money is on top of the Chapter 90 money to do work outside that. Next item is pavement marking. This would be town-wide. The request was for $68,000. And that is what town administrator and capital budget are recommending. The next one is hot fiber crack sealing. This is town-wide. This is the black stripes that you see in the road to fill in the cracks so water doesn't get in. It will extend the lifespan of the roadways. The request is for $65,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee have recommended. Next would be the cemetery department. Under the Public Works, and this is for seal coating the new roads, the paving that they did at Maple Grove and Terrace Hill cemeteries. Request was $10,000, and that is what is recommended by the town administrator and capital budget committee. Then the next would be the paving. This is the Chapter 90 money, and this would also be done according to the pavement master plan. The request was $781,146. That is what is recommended by the capital budget and the town administrator, and that is all Chapter 90 funds. Article 8.
What?
You want to go?
Oh,
questions
sorry,
first?
total, sorry,
Okay.
yeah, sorry, my bad.
Want to do the totals first? or you
Yeah,
want
please.
Okay. All right, the total request for $2,074,146. Town administrator had recommended $1,524,146, and that is what the capital budget voted favorable action. Out of that money, free cash was $733,000. The cemetery receipts was $10,000. Chapter 90 funds was $781,146 for that total of $1.528146.
Excellent. Questions? Seeing none.
Make a motion?
Yes.
Here we go. For $1,524,146, $781,146 out of Chapter 90 funding, $10,000 out of cemetery receipts, and I'm gonna do the math on the fly, $733,000 out of free cash.
Second.
Second. We got a second down from Audrey. Sorry, just make that note. So, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Brian?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
Me, yes. Audrey?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
That is 12-0-0. Excellent. Article 9.
Article 9 would be the Water Department. The first request was at the Willis Treatment Plant up off of London Street, Leonard Road, and that would be to replace the seaweed cartridges for the water filtration. Request was $1,125,000. Town administrator did not recommend any funding for that, and capital budget took no action on that article. The second one was the raw water transmission line cleaning. This here is the piping that goes from the well to the treatment plants. It's, that's where all of the minerals are actually collected, and the pipe needs cleaning to get it back to its original inside diameter. The request was for $475,000. That is what the town administrator recommended, along with the capital budget committee's favorable action. Number 3 was supplemental water source and investigation. This was to look into alternative water supply sources, whether we need additional wells, pilot holes to see where the water might be, or maybe even looking into hooking into the MWRA. That request was for $375,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee have recommended. The next one would be the Willis Lagoon Design Permit. This is a directive from the EPA to find a location to store the debris that is removed from the plant after its filtration. You can't just dump it on the ground and just let it seep back into the earth. This request was for $180,000, and that is what town administrator and capital budget committee are recommending. Next is to replace a 2009 case backhoe. This will be a shared purchase with the sewer department, and this existing backhoe would be passed down to the highway department. It's getting old and seen better days, and the water department relies on this backhoe more than the other departments, so they need a frontline machine. Request from the water department is $150,000, and that is what the town administrator and the capital budget are requesting. All of these items are out of the water retained earnings also. Then there was well improvements. There was a request for $350,000, and that is what the town administrator and capital budget committee are recommending. I'm sorry, but I didn't have any notes on that, so if you have any questions, you would have to ask Mr. Mattson. Article 9, the total requests were for $2,655,000. Town administrator had recommended $1,480,000. That is what the capital budget committee is voted favorable action, the $1,480,000, and that would be all out of water retained earnings.
Can I just ask, how much is in water retained earnings now?
Water retained earnings, so we received certification at about $2.8 million back in August, and on the sewer side, we're at $1.4 million. We talked a little bit about last year, some legal holdback that we're holding back of about $200,000 on the water side, $289,000 on the sewer side. Per the drafted policy, again, I can go over this all at a future date with you folks. If we hold back about 20% on each side, on the water, we'll have just about 1.6 to spend, and on the sewer, 173,000 to spend. So this keeps us within some of the drafted policies that we put out there, and it allows them to continue to go forward with what they need to do, especially on the retained earnings side in the future water borrowing that's down at the bottom there.
Kathleen?
Just a point of clarification through you to Ed. I may be working off an old document, because if it comes during the day, I don't see it. The case backhoe replacement, the request was $150. On mine, it says $100,000 was approved.
Yeah, that's what
It comes between the two departments.
If you look down
And
under
then
the
the sewer, you see
yeah,
the
yeah.
extra
Okay,
50.
but we're voting on the 100 right now.
Correct.
Yeah.
But if we voted on the 100, okay.
I just had,
Yeah, please, Counselor.
what's the lifespan of the membrane that we don't want to replace? Like, if that,
8 to 10 years.
it has 8 to 10 years left? Or when,
No,
how
the
old is it?
Lifespan is 8 to 10 years. They were last replaced in 2012.
pushing it.
We're pushing.
Other questions? Get a motion?
Motion for favorable action on Article 9 in the amount of $1,480,000, all from water retained earnings.
I'll second that.
Kathleen, second. Any discussion? No? Brine?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Audrey?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Sorry. Lisa?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
And Kathleen?
Yes.
12-0-0. So, Article 10, right?
Is that-
Yes, sir.
This Article 10 is a sewer department request. The first item that they were looking for was a sewer extension on Industrial Road, about 3,850 linear feet. They were requesting $3,187,500. Was not recommended by the town administrator, and capital budget took no action. Next one was North Walpole sewer expansion. This would be about 16,650 feet. 55 feet, linear feet of gravity sewer up in the Coach Road area. The request was for $6,340,000. Town administrator did not recommend that, and the capital budget committee took no action. The third item would be sewer system design phase 1 and 2. This would be for 4,650 linear feet of gravity sewer up near Maryland's Way, Marion Street, State Street, in that neighborhood up there. Their request was for $220,000, was not recommended by the town administrator, and capital budget committee took no action on that. Next would be the meter system components. This would be for meters, transmitters, and the equipment for the fixed network material. The request was for $350,000, not recommended by town administrator, and capital budget committee took no action on that. Next would be the 2009 case backhoe. This is the shed backhoe we just talked about, and that's where the other $50,000 was, and thank you for seeing that mistake I made. So the total backhoe price,
Total backhoe is $150,000.
Okay, all right, so that's where I went wrong there, okay. So, the request is for $50,000, that is what the town administrator and the capital budget committee are recommended. Article 10, the total request for $10,247,500. Town administrator has recommended $50,000, and the capital budget took favorable action on the $50,000, and that would be out of sewer retained earnings.
Any questions? Just assuming that some of these requests were not approved since we didn't have the retained earnings to cover them?
That's the whole reason. And one of the items that was approved that Ed did mention there was $350,000 for the meter reading, which was the select board agreed to fund it via ARPA. So I'm just elated that the capital budget did consider it, but select board funded it that way. So just those 3.1 and the 6.3 million. One, we just don't have the funds there. The borrowing capacity isn't there, at least on the sewer side. And two, after vetting it a little bit internally, we don't know what the appetite is there to put some type of assessment on the residents up in North Walpole and the Industrial Road businesses there. I believe they'd have to pay 75% of the cost.
75%. Average betterment would be, for the Industrial Road area, was like $42,000.
So this is expanding the
Correct.
sewer system.
The commissioners, didn't they ask to do a survey or
Right,
some type of
there's
survey on
currently,
Industrial Road?
we're surveying the neighborhoods to see if there's an appetite to do it.
Great. Any other questions? Get a motion?
Motion for favorable action on Article 10 in the amount of $50,000 from sewer retained earnings.
Second?
I'll second that.
Kathleen? Sorry, back up top here. I gotta do this better. Technology's great until it doesn't work. Brian?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Audrey?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes?
Scott?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Excellent. Article 11.
Article 11 is Water Department borrowing. This would be for water main replacement. This would be design permitting and the replacement of 6,400 in linear feet of old cast iron unlined water mains. Streets include Bird Street, Spring Street, Allen Street, Riverview Place. This would improve water quality and the dependability of the service. Request is for $2,900,000. That is what the town administrator requested, and capital budget committee voted favorable action on that. Next item would be redundant water line for central storage. This is to move water to and from central storage, Washington Street to High Plain Street, to Old Post Road. This would be a redundant line, so if the current line has to be shut down, they wouldn't be without water. It could be isolated. Is that correct?
Correct. Right now, we have a single line that provides water to basically the entire system. If that
Okay.
line were to fail, we would have no way of getting water either into or out of its storage tanks.
Okay. That's
And it'd be issue with firefighting too. The hydrants would be out of service, so. That request was for $2,910,000. That is what the town administrator recommended, and capital budget voted favorable action on that amount, and this would be from water borrowing. So Article 11, the total request were $5,810,000. That same figure is what the town administrator recommended, and the capital budget voted favorable action for the $5,810,000 out of water borrowing.
Any questions?
If you tear up all these roads, does that money also, like, fix the roads, resurface them, or?
That's for curb-to-curb overlay of all the streets that are impacted.
Okay.
And we're borrowing.
Yes.
What's the interest rate?
So, I'll explain, I was waiting for someone to ask this question. So, this year, if you look back to the packet I gave you last week, we have $676,000 falling off at the end of this year for an old borrowing that was borrowed back in 2004 for a water tank. This borrowing cost, we factored in over 10 years at $5.8 million. We used a 5% interest rate, which Jody and I are both very hopeful that is way too high. But that cost will be about $753,000 over 10 years. So you get the 676 dropping off there, and the proposal would be to have the 753 come on at the beginning of FY 2024. It just happens to sync up really, really well with the money and everything. And it would be, we're proposing a 10-year borrowing. Obviously, if the rates are crazy out of control, we might stretch that out to 15. But I'd like to keep it down to a 10 if possible, as low as possible on that one. The select board were really in favor of this. The commissioners were happy with it. Obviously, if I thought, Rick and I both think that redundant water line number at $2.9 million is really high. But that's a very conservative number. Obviously, if the bids come in lower, we won't have to go out and borrow that much. That's just a max, that's an authorization. It's not an appropriation. We won't go out and borrow this money until, for some time.
And just a question, because this will go into the debt service for the water department.
Yes.
Why did it go through capital budgets? Have we done this in the
We
past?
always, on the water side, we do, it runs through there, yeah.
Maybe at this point in the night, I'm usually not paying as much attention as, now that I have to.
Now that you're the chair.
All right, sorry. Any other questions?
Just to understand the water and the storage. So we're pumping out of the wells, and then you have a storage tank. Like, how, is the storage tank then feed into the system, or is it just kept there in case the pumping has a problem and you can't I'll
We
put that
have, we have
down.
a total of 18 wells in 2 different aquifers, Minebrook and School Meadow. They all pump to 2 water treatment facilities, one of which is on Leonard Road, the other on Washington Street. After the water's treated, it distributes through the system to the tanks. So all the water that goes to the tanks is treated. From the tanks, it's distributed throughout the system. We have 7 water storage tanks, split amongst 4 different zones.
Okay.
So it's kind of complex. If you want to come and sit down, I'll show you the map.
Right, but there's no one central point, like if that breaks the whole system. Like I'm thinking Jackson, Mississippi, right? That one pump went and now they're all,
There is one single point of failure that we're concerned with, which that redundant line will address, and that's on Old Post Road at the tank site.
okay,
If that one line that services those tanks were happened to break, we wouldn't be able to get water in or out of the tanks.
okay.
Now, the town wouldn't be without water. What they would be without is a storage system. So the water that would be provided to the town would be coming strictly from the plants as opposed from the tanks. So we wouldn't have a surplus storage.
Okay, thank you.
And I think the water line would be from Old Post Road, and,
Right.
I mean, excuse me, yeah, from Old Post Road down to Washington High Plain Street.
Right, we're currently assessing 3 options that we're looking at, which is why, to Jim's point, the conservative number of 2.9. We're hoping that it'll be somewhat less than that, but the exact pipe route has not been chosen. But as Ed said, we'll start at Old Post Road at the tank site.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Get a motion?
Motion for favorable action on Article 11 in the amount of $5,810,000 from water borrowing.
A second? Get down that way, you gotta be ready.
Sorry.
Aw.
I was giving somebody a chance.
Tried to do that. I couldn't get it out in time.
That's what I
Why?
did.
Why, I never did.
Yeah, I know. That's why I could finally do it.
I missed my shot.
Brian?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Audrey?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
Doug?
Yep. Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
And Kathleen?
Yes.
It is 12-0-0.
I know everybody's packing up.
We still have 12, right?
Still have 12.
I was gonna,
That's
what
what
we
you
were just
asked
clarifying,
me,
just
and
making
it's
sure.
like it's not on capital budget, it's separate.
So, Article 12.
Yeah, Article 12 is the, I believe it's the MWRA thing. Okay, this is a financial assistance program that we've taken advantage of over the years through the MWRA. This funding has to be used exclusively for sewer system improvements that remove inflow and infiltration from the system. The next 2 phases, I believe it's phases 12 and 13, or 11 and 12, I'm not sure of the numbers, but each of those 2 phases is $810,000. The first phase, the first $810,000, I believe, is 75% grant, 25% 0% interest loan. The second 810 is 100% loan. So it's, again, it's a program that we've taken advantage of over the years. We're mandated by the DEP to have an inflow and infiltration program, and this is how we fund it. The only impact of the ratepayer would be the interest, well, there's no interest on the loans. It's just that we have to pay the loans back, you're right, I think it's in 10 years?
I believe so.
Yeah, over 10 years.
And they budget for that.
We budget for that.
So it's not a grant, it's a 0% interest loan?
The phase 11 is a 25% loan, 75% grant. The second 810, there are 2 phases.
Okay.
The second phase is $810,000, and that's a straight loan. There's no grant.
And just for clarification, that's also 0%.
Yes.
Any questions? Get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, before you adjourn, I would like to acknowledge Josette and her years of service on the Capital Budget Committee and all her input. She will definitely be missed, and I think Mr. Putnam has some big shoes to fill to take her place. So I want to thank her publicly for all she has done for us.
Thank you, yes.
We give up. I apologize, I should have wrapped you, I jumped into the Article 12 without, because you're not on Article
We
12,
didn't
so
get
we can
involved in that.
let you go there, yeah. My apologies.
No, that's good.
This is the rookie here, so. Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, you did a good job.
Thanks, Ed.
Yes, thanks, Ed.
You did a good job.
So motion for Article 12?
Motion. Favorable action on Article 12. Do I gotta say the values for these? Is there grants, we're just.
I don't think we do, right? We just
No,
need,
it's just the
it's
article.
just the article itself, yeah.
Second.
Scott.
Got in one.
So close.
Aye. Brian?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Audrey?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
And Kathleen?
Yes.
It's 12-0-0. And Jim,
Make a motion?
anything else
No,
that you want to bring up?
I
That's
think I
that's the
covered in the
agenda.
memo I provided this afternoon. We're set to cover Article 2, 3, 4, 5, 13, 14, and 15. And I made that, we were able to squeeze in that change on the revolving fund that Doug talked about, so there shouldn't be any issue with that, and we're good to go.
Say that last part again. We don't have to change, we don't have to change
Don't
the
have to
name. You
make a
already.
special motion, we were able to do it.
Okay,
Make it
good.
Oh, that's good.
Just one comment. So I was mentioning to Patrick earlier, the select board's contract with the town clerk. So this is just a draft, it's not,
No, it's signed, that's, it's
so
done.
I'm just curious, on number, in point 1, it talks about in effect from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2022.
The
Oh,
the
that's a
date,
typo. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I honestly.
I would imagine they
The
caught it
reason I
before they
didn't go to the
signed
signed
it, but
version
just
is-
to let you know.
Aoife's away on vacation, I had it in my computer, so.
Okay.
Excellent.
Rough contract.
Nothing else, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion to adjourn.
I'm a second.
Perfect. There we go.
Well done.
All right, we do have to do the roll call one last time. Brian?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Audrey?
Yes.
Steve? Steve's not here, sorry. Jean?
yes.
Leanne?
Yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
And Kathleen?
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.